the coach there.
Oh, I
And
know Scott.
so I was, persuaded a little bit by my parents to maybe make a different decision. And so what Jimmy and I are trying to do is just let people know about programs that are in the NAI, JUCO programs, Division two, Division three, because we all know that the Power Five gets all the shine, whether it's football or baseball or wrestling and cross country and track and field. And there's a lot of great stories out there, a lot of great people, a lot of great coaches, and a lot of great athletes that are doing amazing things with programs all over the country. And we feel that if you're a high school student athlete that's committed to the sport and committed to academics, and maybe you didn't hit your peak in high school and get those looks from those big programs, if you're willing to take the jump and leap of faith to the next level, we can find your program. So that's what we're trying to do over here, and that's why we're having you on, because we want to know a little bit more about yourself and a little bit more about the university. And we've been checking off all the boxes with the NAIA coaches, starting with Coach Souter over at the University of Cumberland's. We've had Coach Webb down at Ave Maria. We just had Coach Weiss from Marion on as well. So you were on the list, and here we are.
Awesome. Well, thanks.
Yeah, we're excited, and we want to hear all about the great things you got going on in Crete, Nebraska, and just about the town and itself.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, howdy and aloha. We are here and you are there, and we greatly appreciate you joining us this evening for another episode of Airey Bros Radio Live. Tonight, we're heading back to the Oval with a legend in the NAI track and field world. But before we get rolling, you know the drill. Make sure you smash that like and subscribe button. Drop a comment. Every review, every share helps grow the sport and give back to the sport we love. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. As always, this episode is fueled by CS Instant Coffee and Black Sheep Endurance Coaching. And let's not ever forget why we're doing this over here at Airey Bros Radio. We're here to shine a light on the programs and coaches we wish we had access to coming up. If you or someone you know is looking for the right fit at the next level, please share this episode with them. Runners, parents, coaches, pull up a seat. We're going live with Coach Ed Fye from Doane University. He coached the 2021 NAIA Men's Outdoor National Champions. He's coached over 600 NAIA All-Americans with 40 plus national champions, and they are fresh off their 57th and 58th Great Plains Athletic Conference as the director and track and field at Doane University in Crete, Nebraska. Coach Ed Fye, it is an honor and pleasure to have you with us this evening. We do greatly appreciate your time. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm excited to visit with you guys a little bit.
Awesome. We are excited as well, too. We want to hear about the Tigers and what you got going on. And obviously, start off with a little congratulations. You guys, like I said, are fresh off your 57th and 58th conference championship. So congratulations there.
Yeah, it was a good weekend. They made me look pretty good. So we had really good weather, and that's been kind of a little bit of a problem with the winds in the Midwest. We weren't getting very many times that were going to let us qualify, but with the competition and the weather, it ended up being a great weekend for the GPAC.
Awesome. Awesome. We want to hear about the GPAC meet and all that stuff, how outdoors been going. But I guess to kick it off, how we like to do this, Jimmy and I both have our origin stories about how we got into sports like cross country and track and field, as well as wrestling. And
Yeah.
coaching as well. That kind of led us into the world of coaching, and now we're doing what we're doing here, promoting stuff. But what is your origin story with track and field, and how did that lead you to get into coaching?
Yeah, I grew up in Juanita, Nebraska, which is a little town that had 20 people in my class, and I did track, football, and basketball, and I was also rodeoed as well. So rode bulls, barebacks, and saddle broncs. So I don't know if that makes me very smart, but it's supposed to make me tougher, I guess. But I was involved in a lot of different things, and when you come from the smallest class school, I vaulted off the wrong foot. I had a cinder track. You made the best of what you could, and I got into coaching because I really wanted to try uh, to give back to the sport that gave me some success in high school. So I ended up had a coach that went. He actually played against us in football. Was the head coach at Hayes Center. Tom Hood was his name, and he went back to Doane as the defensive coordinator. And then he and Fred Biley recruited me to Doane. So I ended up at Doane as a dual sport football and track, and then I was a L-Ed phys ed major. So I kind of got into it because I just wanted to give more knowledge to the kids like me that didn't have a lot of opportunities or coaches or facilities and things to help you get you reach your goals.
So your legacy at Doane,
It's been there a
so to
while.
speak, yeah.
And I actually the legacy is doesn't even start with me. We had Al Papick and Fred Biley. Fred was there, was an assistant coach, and I took over for him, and he was there 56 years, and then I was his assistant coach for over 20 years, and then we won two women back-to-back national titles in 21 or '01 and '02, and then he turned it over to me in 2003. So I've been 20 whatever 2 or 3 years so I've been over 40 years myself, but in 70 or 80 years, there's only been three coaches at Doane in track and field, and that's a pretty good statement. But it's the consistency of what he taught me and the program that he built with the traditions and legacies. I feel pretty fortunate to be able to pass those things on that he taught me that made Doane successful at that time, and I've been able to keep that moving forward at Doane since I took over in 2002.
And it's interesting you say that because in today's climate, maybe not, I guess in certain regards of the NAI with the transfer portal, people getting poached and getting taken to the Division I level, as we've
Right.
seen. Um, there's something to really be said about continuity of coaching and how that lends itself to success and being with the same program and the same coaches and the same philosophies, how that tradition and that culture carries on and success breeds success. So it's pretty impressive that over that, span of time that there's been such a small amount of coaches that have worked and led the program.
Yes, and that's one thing that I think really helps us is you know, I've coached uh, kids right now that dads went to Doane and Fred had kids, and now you go through that cycle, and they've had an amazing experience when they were here. So, we're getting their kids, and then they're out there coaching and helping us. So, that part of it and being here and Doane is Fred Biley and me and being part of that program. It's just not Doane College. I think it puts a face that these people are recognized, and because of their experience and the same people are still here, you trust that you're going to be able to take care of their kids and give them the same kind of experience that they had.
Coach, at Doane, is it just the track and cross country programs that have the longevity of the coaches, or is it across the board with all the other athletics?
No, it's just track. I was thinking about it the other day. When I started, I had Bob Erickson was there 40 years, and Tom Hood and Fran Schwenk and Fred Biley. And I had a little office called the Cloffice because it was in there with the ka-chunk machine that you used to do to put the ditto machine together. And I made a little office in there, and I was the young pup back then. And now I'm the old guy up on the hill, but no, there isn't really anybody that's probably been there over 10 years, maybe, and
Okay.
any of the other sports as of recently.
And you mentioned being over there 40 years plus and having kids that you coached. How has maybe the first 20 years of your coaching and the latter half of your coaching changed just based on kids being different nowadays?
Right. I really don't know if the kids are different. I think um, the techniques, and I mean, you better be ready to evolve with the sport. And that's one thing I learned from Fred Biley. I mean, he was old school. I mean, you never got a compliment for Fred. And when I took over the job, he said, "Remember this, Fi, you can always serve as a bad example. So there's something you can do in life." So anyway, it's just you got to learn to have a tough skin. I mean, after he quit, he would give me 2 or 3 pages of notes like what I need to do different and how I need to get better. And if administrators or people are telling you what you need to do, I think, too many people jump and get defensive, and those people, you just should sit back and listen. And, there's a lot of those things that you can take to heart, and there's some things that just don't fit into the way you coach. And, he was a hard guy, and I'm just the opposite. I build tremendous relationships with all of our kids, and I try to do it with the families that we have. And I think that, and then helping the kids learn to build relationships as well. And once they start believing in you and in the program, and then being able to, as a coach and staff, I mean, I've been really fortunate. When I took over for Fred in 2002, it was me and Coach Dunnigan and Fred, but all of us have been there for 20 some years. And now, last year on our roster, we had 201 kids on our roster
Wow.
at one time. And we have 180 on our roster now, but it's because every single kid gets a tremendous experience. And when we go to conference or nationals, it's like you got a role to play. You may not be scoring points, but you're going to push your teammates. You're going to motivate your teammates. You're going to push your teammates. And when we go to conference and there's 100 kids lined up along the long jump runway or the whole end, the mile relay, which are traditions that we do, is lined up, then it's pretty neat to have that many kids. But I have 16 coaches now that are alumni or people that I know. So still got to coach them. You still got to be building those tremendous relationships with those young kids. And they do have problems, and there's anxieties, and that's back when we just thought we were having a bad day, but now it's anxieties, and you got to be able to help kids get through those. But you also have to build those relationships to know that they're having a bad day, a good day, or they need help financially or whatever it is. And that's another thing, being at a school. You guys know, I mean, I know the president and I went to college together, and he was the head football coach at Princeton. So he's a football, he knows sports and he knows how academics work. So if we need something, then you go to try to help us get what we want for our athletes. And so we're pretty fortunate to have the people that we have to build those relationships. But like I said, kids, I don't know if they're different. I think things are different because maybe there's some entitlement to some of those kids, but I think as a coach, that's your job to teach those kids that, there's a team and there's bigger things. And through track, that we teach life lessons that they're going to have when they go out. It's like everybody on the first day on campus knows that if you're on Doane Track and Field, you better go to class every single day. That's what Doane Track and Field does. And it's just things like that. You teach those kids that what we do, and that's how Doane Track and Field is perceived, and you're part of a standard that is high, and we hold you guys to that standard. And they don't all get there, but as the coaching staff, we have to help them get through all those things, and then we get to coach them as well as athletes.
Coach, I love how you said if you're on Doane Track and Field, everyone knows you're going to class. I had a wrestling coach tell me you can't fail class if you go to all of them, and the teachers know who you are. And that took me a minute to graduate, but that helped me graduate because that was my mantra. Even days I didn't feel like it, I went, I
Absolutely.
showed up. So you mentioned having 16 coaches, and you also mentioned 200 plus athletes last year, 180 this year, and relationships being key. Are you able to have relationships with that whole roster, or your 16 other coaches are kind of helping you
Every
with
single
that?
one. Yep. I recruit them. I have those relationships. I'll go to, I mean, I think from what other people know, some of the coaches that I've had, the throwers never really got to know the head coach because they never are around them. But I spent a lot of time. I was a decathlete, and I coached decathlon. Decathlon's a pretty big event at Doane. So I spend a lot of time with throwers or just hanging out at their practices, and I go to the pole vault and all those events and make sure those kids see me and know that I'm watching and supporting them. Also at practices or before or after practices and things. But yeah, there's not very many. Now I can't say that all my coaches know every single kid on our roster or their names, besides a couple of them that put the entries in for the for the meets, but most, I mean, it gets to the point where it's individual because we've grown so big and the relationships are important that it used to be in practice. When I was there, we had 45 people. So you built those relationships in practice for the 2 hours that you're there. Well, again, there's another thing that's changed. So, we have pizza parties and pool parties and we do spooktacular. We went and picked up over 3,000 pumpkins. With 180 kids, it took us like a half hour. It takes the city like half a day to get that done. So we do a lot of things. We go to Martin Luther King Day and help the high school. And with that many kids and that many hands, it doesn't take long to do a lot of things for people. We get done with meets and our whole team takes care of the facility so the maintenance people don't stay there for 4 or 5 hours afterwards. But they do a lot of things together to build those relationships, and we have to do it outside of track because individual groups are close. And when I was there, that was happened, and that was just enough. But I saw over the years that the throwers don't know the little guys running on the road, and they don't see each other every single day. So we find a way to get those guys together outside of track and field and build those relationships. And then when we go to conference, they don't want to let each other down or the national meet. And I think that's the culture that we have. And, and I've had people tell me that they really can't believe the culture, like how they support one another and push one another and stuff. But that's kind of what we're asking of them and teaching them, I think, through our practices and after practices.
You had me at spooktacular.
Yeah. Yeah. I had to race them through the maze. I wasn't very good, but
Well, Coach, I just want to say one thing real quick here. We've had this will be 260 plus episodes, and I think you're our first rodeo guy ever. So I want to commend you on that. But also, I think it's huge when you talk about the athletes helping out after meets and cleaning up the facility and taking care of their house. And I make my athletes do that, and I can't tell you how much of an impact that has on the custodial staff and the maintenance staff. I've had it at two different schools that I've worked at where the maintenance staff has come up and thanked me because my team is the only team that cleans up after themselves and makes their job easier. So that is huge for me, and that's such an impactful thing. And maybe the kids don't necessarily realize it, but when as a coach, when other adults come up to you and thank you for having kids do that sort of stuff, it makes a huge to me, like, sure, the wins and losses and the accolades and all that stuff is great, but when interactions like that happen and you talk about, mentioned relationships quite a few times, and I think those sorts of relationships make a big deal and matter too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that, and like you said, that. It's just one time we were headed to nationals, and I was on the van taking the equipment up, and my assistant coach Brad Jenny calls and said, "Hey, the bus didn't show up." And I'm like, "Well, it should have. I know I sent it." So I get on my computer. Well, it was saved in a draft. So we had no bus to take us to the Epley Airport in Omaha at 5 in the morning. And we made a phone call. And like you said, all the maintenance people were there. They took the morning off. We got school vans. They drove us to the Lincoln Airport, and we bought them breakfast. And like I said, and that if you take care of those people, they'll take care of you.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so that was a pretty cool situation for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I would also say with a roster of 200 student athletes and a campus with, less than, I think, 1,000 undergrads, Doane must be like track U.
Yeah, right now you walk by a lot of them on campus for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Coach, I graduated from college in 1998, and I don't necessarily think the term director of track and field existed back then. It was just, I think my coach was named the director quite a couple of years after I had graduated. I think that started becoming a thing, and that became a new role within track and field. You've been at Doane for 40 years. How have you seen the evolution of being a head coach and then a director of cross country and track and field? How has that changed, and how have you evolved with that role?
Right. Again, the names and things change, but I don't know. Like I was given that role, but nothing's changed. I mean,
Sure.
I don't oversee the cross country coach. I mean, if we hired them to do their job, and you really don't micromanage. If you don't like what they're doing, then they shouldn't be there. And Brad Jenny is our head cross country coach. He's been at Doane probably 25 years or so. So him and I have been there quite a while. But I think I don't know why they gave me the name of director, but they did. I don't know if it sounds better. It didn't give me any more money, I can tell you that. But anyway, the role of a coach is you know, I told about Bob Erickson, the legend at Doane. He was a basketball coach. He threw chairs across the floors before Indiana. Bobby Knight did, and he was a legend at Doane. And I really looked up to him. And one thing he told me is that he said, "Fi, you can't save everybody." And and I do. I probably try to save every kid. And he's right. You can't save anybody, but that doesn't mean don't try to save every single kid and to keep them part of your team and get them into part of a team culture that, they may be individuals, but once you get them in there and they start believing in one another and you get to a conference meet and they see how important it is, how people pick you up. I mean, it's fun to see how that kid that's rough around the edge that probably didn't get a chance to be able to get in there and have a successful in the classroom. I mean, we're 12-to-1 student teacher ratio. So again, I have relationships with most of the teachers here. They'll give me a buzz if Susie's not going to class or somebody needs some help or some direction, so that's pretty cool for me because they know that we don't want to let our kids fail, and I will help them with whatever they need to get that kid successful. But I probably see that we have 180. That's a lot of work to make sure all of those are successful, but that's my job, and I need to make sure those things happen. And I think maybe that's what I see a lot of programs don't do is they get the kid maybe for their athletic ability, but not as a person. And number one goal is to get them a degree. And if you work on those two things, then playing track, they always make fun of me because we play track at Doane. So, uh, and then we get 2 hours a day to go play track and build some relationship, have some success, and teach them a few things. I think, but I just think too much anymore. Like you said, the trophies and the winning and all that is really important, and we forget maybe about who we're dealing with is 18 to 21-year-old kids that need direction.
Coach, talking about that, and in 2021, you guys took home the national championship. Do you have any years that maybe you didn't have a winning season or that wasn't the best that might stand out right next to that in your mind because things you did or kids you had on that team?
Yeah. I mean, actually, it was last year was the first time since 1963 that we haven't won a conference cross or a conference track at all. And it was 2023, that we didn't win any. And that was tough. It's tough because I always tell our kids but it's tough. But again, the standard in the conference is in the GPAC is tough. And if you can win the conference, and we got some tremendous coaches and they raise the standards all the time. And I told our coaching staff is like, hey, we're not the standard. You got to work. We got to find a way to be the best at what we do because that's what we're getting paid for. And we need to get better. And, we listened. We did some things different. We motivated our kids to have set a high goal that like this year we are getting back to conference championships on both sides, indoors and outdoors. So instead of going out, I felt like this year and hoping nobody caught us, we went out to win, and it was theirs to go out to win. And it was like we weren't looking over our shoulders at anybody else. We were taking care of what we need to take care of and doing what we did best. And, that really motivated me. And one of the reasons I stay in this, guys, is because I'm competitive. I am very competitive. And when the GPAC raises their standards or the NAIA raises their standards, I have to raise my standards. I have to get better. I need to work harder and smarter and do the things. So that competitive drive is when we have those bad years, or probably motivate me more than, like this year, where, this is probably all the years that we've had with all the success. I don't know that we've won all four conference championships. We scored over 200 points in the GPAC. Our women were second, our guys were third. I mean, that's phenomenal. As far as the trophies and the things we've done, that's probably as good. But it's also a team that has been fun to coach with 180 kids and motivating and pushing each other. And, when things are going well, it just seems like the classroom is better, discipline and things are better when things are going the right way. So last year was probably the most difficult one. And then in 2021, I'm probably most proud of that one because that was right after a COVID year. So we learned how to win after a COVID year when everybody struggled and we couldn't practice and we couldn't do things. And you had to make a lot of changes. And I think as a coaching staff, I think we did a heck of a job of doing things on the fly and learning how to train through that and do things. And to win that national title when it was probably the toughest to win because of all the parameters that we had to go through to be the best at what we did was a pretty good moment for me and our coaching staff to be able to raise our bar that high where everything else the last year was a struggle in everything in life.
So you bring up this year winning 4 conference titles, and we're getting ready to go to nationals. Who
Yep.
do we need to keep an eye on going to nationals?
Well, you got British Columbia and up in Canada, and that's a really good school because there isn't any other NCAA schools or anything up there. So it's kind of like their top athletes in the nation are going there. So outdoors, that is a really tough meet to win with those guys. And the guys, I mean, you got the right guys because Cumberland and Marion and Madonna and the guys that you've interviewed are the people that every year they put somebody out there to do really, really well, and so we're excited. I mean, if you can go to a national meet and you can still be counting points to see where you're coming in and top four get trophies, and that'd be a great accomplishment, I think, for our coaching staff and for our kids if we finish the year and 4 trophies at nationals and the 4 conference would be uh, pretty unbelievable year.
Who on the Doane team do we need to keep an eye on? Top performers.
Yeah, we got a young man. He's from Crete. He's in my son's class. My son's a decathlete on the team. And anyway, I had him since he's 8 years old, and he never even started athletics. And we made him start playing flag football and doing all the sports. And anyway, he was in the last 3 weeks. He's been the national athlete of the week. He has he broke the indoor hurdle time was 770 in the nation. He just ran the fastest outdoor time. I think he ran 13:49. Last week he ran 49 in the 400 hurdles. He also splits 46 on the mile relay. So he's absolutely somebody that is at a very high level, and now that he is where he is, he could be running for anybody and anywhere. And it's kind of funny, the last 3 days, I think in the NCAA, they're looking at trying to allow JUCO an extra year and NAIA kids an extra year of competition. And I've had some very, very high track and field coaches in the nation have contacted me about him trying to go run for another year somewhere. So it's a great accomplishment for him, I think, to be able to do that. But he's very talented. And on the women's side, we got Maddie Sutton, and she's been national champion in the hammer and the weight throw, and she's been a national champion in the discus, and she's been national runner up in shot put, not all in the same year. And her dad went to Doane as well. So there's another legacy, and the other one's from Crete. So those are the type of things that I'm talking about. And her little sister throws for us on the javelin. as well. But on both sides, those are probably our big impacts that could, score high at the national meet.
Coach, is Pat Henry down in College Station one of those coaches calling you? He likes to pick up some of those NAIA guys we've learned over the past year and a half.
Well, LSU and USC, K-State,
Okay.
Nebraska just called again. So we don't know the ruling yet
Yeah.
on what if he is going to be allotted that or not. But I think that's a great statement to, like you said. I mean, we're NAI, but we have some athletes
Yeah.
that
Heck
are
yeah.
performing at a very high level. And when you go into the NAI, you wonder when you get done if you're doing the things he is. It's like I wished I could have made it. I wonder if I could have made it in NCAA. And I think it's kind of neat for him to have had, and he's the most humble kid in the world, and a great teammate and team captain for 2 years, and so it's neat to have him know that he's the type of young man that can run any level that he wants.
Heck yeah. Jimmy and I are selfishly pulling for that ruling to come through because we both are junior college athletes. So we have a year
Yep.
of eligibility. So if
Let's go.
anyone out there is looking for a 50-year-old cross country runner, give me a holler. I'll be happy to go out and lace them up again.
Love it. You could win your age group anyway.
That's right. So, Coach, I'm curious with the roster size that you have and scoring over 200 points at conference. I would imagine that you guys are scoring points all across the board.
We do. There isn't very many. I mean, events that I don't think we left an event open where we may not have scored. Yeah, I think the steeple was one, but most of them, we're two or three deep. In the hurdles, I think we scored 44 points in just the 110 hurdles and the uh, 400 hurdles on the men's side. So we have some events that are pretty good that give us a lot, but you can't win championships when you're leaving events open at the conference level. So we fill a lot of events. We have a lot of kids, a lot of depth, and when you're getting the seventh and eighth and you're after conference championships, they mean a lot. And
Yeah.
indoors we're going, and this girl, she finished eighth in the mile, and everybody went over and dogpiled. It's just like, why is everybody dogpiling a girl that just got eighth in the conference, but at that point, it was a very close meet, and they knew every point was counted. So that's what's fun about the team part of it is like you knock somebody out that's top 16 that don't get a go, and or you score that eighth place and you weren't supposed to. So the team dynamics of track and field, and even our president says, like, how do you make track and field a sport? And you've been part of it, and you've been part of those. And a lot of people don't make it a team sport at all, but that's how every day we look at Doane track and field is it's about every single person and doing their job.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I was fortunate to run at Monmouth University, and we were the first of many Northeast Conference championships, and then later on the MAC and now the Colonial Athletic Conference. But
Right.
we had that kind of feel to it where, we all had our kind of individual groups,
Right.
but outside we all came together and we got the reputation, as we used to call it a family, but outside perspectives from other sports team, they were like, oh, there's the track cult. There's the track cult,
Yep.
because we just stuck together and, it was great having all the skinny distance runners going over and rooting for the shot putters, the javelin throwers, the hammer throwers,
Exactly.
because it was like the same thing. We're scoring points across the board. So, we're kicking and screaming and fighting for every point.
Right.
So if a shot putter gets eighth or a steeplechaser gets sixth, everyone's cheering because we want those points.
Yes,
It's a beautiful
absolutely.
thing.
Yep. Absolutely.
Coach,
That's fun.
from a athlete perspective, you mentioned some of the local talent that you got there. What sort of student athletes are you looking for at Doane, and it would be a good fit? And I guess how wide are you stretching the Doane umbrella in terms of regionally and athletes?
Right. I mean, probably 90% of our team is Nebraska
Okay.
kids. We don't do a lot outside of it. I've over the years, I've opened up areas. We had a big with El Paso. We had over 20 kids at one time from El Paso. There's certain areas that we've opened up that I've had great relationship with coaches, so they would know what we were doing with kids and would send them. in that thing. And that's actually, we had a better, that was when I was coaching football and track, because I did both, but I also coached football and track until I became the head coach. And when we had that dual combo, not, and we still have that combination, which we get a lot of kids, a lot of schools don't give because they can't do football and track. But at Doane, we allow that. And when in El Paso, when we went down there, we were allowing those kids to do both of those. So we were getting some Division I kids, maybe that's like, I don't want to give up track. But I'm a good football player too. So, and we still get a lot of those. And our football coaches really work well with us on not doing spring ball and letting our kids compete and then do things. So, yeah, so that kind of.
That's amazing. No, 90% homegrown. That's pretty impressive in today's day and age with, recruiting being the way it is and
Yeah.
international students coming over and doing what they do to be as successful as you are. That's very impressive. You mentioned being a football coach and having some crossover athletes, and Jimmy and I are big on that, both from a wrestling perspective and from a track and field perspective, coming from small schools ourselves,
Right.
and always trying to bridge the gap with the football coach, whether it's from a wrestling coach perspective or a track coach, like, hey, I'm going to make your kid a better football player, whether it's, he's doing something in the field event or he's sprinting or jumping, or if he's a lineman, I can make him better through wrestling. Can you talk about just that importance of having multi-sport athletes and coaches allowing their athletes to, if not participate in something like track and field, try it for the first time, and that how it's going to benefit them at their other sports?
Right. I think our kids like it because in football anymore, it's a year round. I mean, you're going year round. I mean, you're done with football and you start back in, you got spring ball. Our kids like it because they like football, but they don't like the grind all year round. They like to go out and then they can compete. But the all coaches also know we have lifting programs and we're making them faster.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have them all summer and then they have them in 2-a-days and the things that they do. But we've been really fortunate because I in 78 to 82, I was a two-sport athlete, and all the coaches ever since then have allowed two-sport athletes. We've had basketball kids that come out for just outdoor, and volleyball coach used to love us because she goes, I can't believe how much faster they are and how high they jump when they're done with track. They're missing out on some of the fundamentals a little bit when they're doing that, but they're happy with what we're trying to do with them with that. But we've had, even on the flip side, academically, which I don't know if there's even any schools, but our choir and band, we also allow kids to do that, and they're like, this is great. Nobody lets their kids. I mean, they miss 2 days a week because we got concerts and we got this, and it's just like, I don't think 2 days of practice is going to kill us. We start in January, and I think too many coaches are too caught up in like, this is my sport. They can't be going doing other things, and they're losing out on these days. And I found out over the years the recovery days are way more important than the days that you're hammering kids. And if they're not healthy at the end, then you're not gonna have them anyway. So, and the other big thing I think, guys, is for the dual sport is you gotta not ever let the kid get caught in the middle of it. Say, you can't, everybody's pulling, everybody wants a piece of him, but they cannot be caught in the middle with that. And that's one thing I think we've also did a very good job of is letting them know, hey, we want you to do your thing on both of them, but you might have to sacrifice a little bit here to be able to be here. But we figure that out as adults and professors and professionals, and then we let them know how we're going to move forward with that. But the double is really big at Doane, and working with people is where we get some kids that other people don't.
Yeah, so do you find that helps with recruiting kids that want to play both sports in
Oh,
college and most places won't, and you guys encourage it?
yeah, yes, yes. Like a lot of D2 school. I mean, their spring ball is, I mean, in D1. I mean, you're going there, you're not going to do two sports. And if you do, and you're very good, you still got to go get beat up and spring ball and do what you're supposed to do and lifting and hard lifting, and you're trying to have them at their best. and it's just very difficult, to do at that level because they're going year round. And so we offer them, hey, yeah, you can do both here, and you can be very successful at both. And we had a kid named Raymond Adams for Texarkana, and he was a national champion, and he also broke all the records at our school and conference, and and he got done, and he ended up getting signed by the New York Jets. But the thing they liked about him was because he was a two-sport athlete, and he also ran 21.4 in the 200, and he ran 14.1 in the hurdles, and so they knew that he was pretty fast as well. So that helped him, I think, a little bit and when he went to look at the professional level.
Coach, so you've mentioned the small class size, you mentioned encouraging dual sport athletes. What else about Doane University, the campus, that kids listening to this podcast, parents listening to this podcast need to know as far as majors, other things that are unique to Doane?
Right. Education. I mean, that's what I graduated with, the LED, and I taught sixth grade when I went out, and was head football and track coach at a little bitty school when I went out, 8-man school for my first year. But education is a big, we guarantee they're done in 4 years, and we give them 12 credits toward their masters when they get done. Because of our class size, we also guarantee they're done in 4 years, or we pay for the fifth year that we have. Um, Most every kid lives on campus, and Roger Hughes, like I said, is our president, and he understands. We don't want our kids to leave our campus. I mean, we want campus engagement. So he hired a vice president of campus engagement. So on our weekends, I mean, we want speakers, and we want dances, and we want concerts, and we want things that, like, hey, let's go down to Doane and hang out, not at Nebraska or these schools. Let's go down there. They're having things that going on. So uh, I think that is good because he went through Doane and understands that, on weekends we don't go places, and we hung out in Crete, and we did things on campus and had dances and things that we could do to build that culture. And they can't do what we did back then. And after football games and everything, we had a big skating ring, and they had a DJ come in, and the whole school went down there. And with and it's pretty neat because you don't do those, you can't even do those things anymore. And but it was a great campus environment because you got to see kids you don't even see most of the time out and about. But the campus engagement is big at Doane. All the majors are really good. Our engineering program is very good because if you go to a big school, you usually can't do athletics with an engineering degree, and these people are actually getting involved right away on our campus because it's small that we have. So that is a major that I think is really evolving and at a pretty high level. We have ag business that has been pretty good lately as well. But the other thing that I got, I think, being from a small school, like you guys understand that is, you know, you can read all the books you want, but when you get done, it's who you know. And that's, like I said, we build relationships. And actually, my brother is a vice president of advancement at Doane. He followed me to Doane, and he actually held the 400 record for, I think, 30 some years, ran 47 something. But he makes a phone call, and the kid's interested in business, and we got him a job. Or my son started as a chiropractor and wanted physical therapy. He was getting paid internships after his sophomore year to go do things that you do. So, having those connections and being able to use those to help our students. Don't people help don't people is kind of what our president says. And it's really nice to have a Doane president that's an alum, and my brother's an alum in the advancement office. So, they just announced this year, we've already raised $82 million at the school through our alumni and things. So, I think we're thriving, and because again, I think it's a lot to do with just Doane people are there, and it's easier to give me probably 10 million than it is to give you 10 million, and you could be the president or whoever, but you're not a Doane guy. And I think they've done some really good things at Doane, just connecting the university with Doane people.
Well, Coach, I'm all for bringing back the DJs in the roller rink. So you've had me there. I'm all down for that. It sounds like there's a lot of, whether it's student athletes of parents that went to Doane or people like yourself and your brother and the president that are alumni as well. Is that a reoccurring theme with amongst the other coaches and the professors as well?
Yeah, and our basketball coach is he's a Doane alum. Roger was at Princeton University, and he brought in one of his assistant coaches in football last year that we've had. Yeah, we do try to bring him in, a lot of them, and it has been in the past. Ed Hubbs is still he's older than me, so that's he's the tennis coach, and he was just coach of the year that we had. So we do have a lot of coaches on staff that are, that are coaches on our programs.
Okay, that's awesome. And the town of Crete itself, what's the town like? It's a
Yeah, I
small
mean,
town, small
we
population.
we have couple manufacturers. We have Alpo, which is Perino now. I can't remember. It's been about 3 or 4 different things since I've been there, but I think it's Perina now that we have. And then we have a farmland plant. So we have a lot of international at our schools. Our Crete is really good. My wife's the principal at the elementary, and to incorporate, all the different cultures that are coming in there to speak English and get them moved into being able to speak English and get their degrees and do things. Crete does a tremendous job. The superintendent is a kid that I coached. He's one of my All-Americans, and the principal I coached at the high school was also a kid I coached in football. And then I married my wife, so she's a principal. So I have some connections up there. And I know one thing is I think they really do a great job of when I have great kids, my wife doesn't let them leave Crete. She's got them on their roster because they're competitive, they're good kids, and they have a really good coach and teaching staff at Dome. But they do a really good job of that in Crete. But a lot of multicultural. I think we're over 50 or 60% minorities, I think, at the school that we have. But we got the movie theaters, the Runzas. You guys don't even know what Runza is, I don't think, probably.
No, fill us in.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just sauerkraut and hamburger and baked inside of a big old bun that they have, but they're only in Nebraska. And then Czech kolaches and
Yeah, we know
Czech
kolaches.
capital of the world is where they have big parades and things up the road from us. And so there's a lot of culture down around there. But I think some of the kids really like your 20 minutes to go big red, and everybody thinks Nebraska football's used to be good when we were good. They still think that, but anyway, they really like going up there, and there's different places for them to go up there to hang out and do some things. And it's like I said, it's 25 minutes away, so it's kind of you can stay at Dome, but you can still run up to Lincoln if you want. So it's been a really good community.
It sounds like it's a community where everyone knows your name.
Absolutely. Yeah, like the Ace Hardware guy. I mean, I called him the other day. He gave me the tiller to till up the deals. We needed a tent for conference, and they gave us a tent to put up. And they're really do a good job. I have a guy that we have about 3 international kids on our team, and he needed some help. So anyway, he did a great job of helping him and tear down some buildings and do some things. And so, again, I've been there long enough. It's like, when you're a community member and you've been there a long time, people want to help, and we're pretty fortunate. I mean, we have a track meet. We host 3 to 4 indoor meets and outdoor meets, and everybody's like, "How do you do that?" And I'm like, "Well, they've done it every year, so they just show up." And a couple of the older guys get mad because I don't call them on Wednesday nights and forget to tell them, like, well, you knew it was coming. It's on Saturday, every Saturday. Just come and rake the pit or do something. But we're pretty fortunate to have the community when we have meets to come up and they run things off for us, and our alumni and everything. Because I think the worst nightmare for an AD of trying to get a track meet set up and finding help and doing everything. And we're self-run. We line all the fields and set everything up. Brad does the finish links, and we have our own system and things. So I said we've all been here long enough. We know there's a track meet. Everybody disappears, and then all the meet starts, and it runs off smooth. So that's kind of nice.
And you mentioned an indoor meet, so you guys have an indoor facility?
Yeah, we have a 200-meter indoor facility with all
Okay.
jumps and pits, and yeah. So yeah, we're pretty fortunate. We were actually the first school in Kansas, I think, and we had it in the 70s, but it was a 160 track
Hmm.
back then. But we were the only school in Nebraska or Iowa or anywhere that had a track. And I read some articles where, there were 35 teams that came into our indoor track to run track down there. So, and then I think in 2010, we moved it and expanded it to a 200-meter Mondo track. Yeah, we're pretty fortunate, and we have an indoor, and through our Doane alumni, we built a $90,000 weight room off of it, and we got ellipticals and treadmills and things in the back, and it's pretty much our building. We have cheer and dance in there in the middle once in a while. Yeah, but we're pretty fortunate to have the facilities that we have.
Jim, Crete's 25 minutes from Lincoln. We could go see Coach Snyder once in a while. It sounds like it's a little diamond in the rough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, you got me sold. Yeah, got us sold on the local food. Rich and I are consider ourselves a little bit of foodies, so we always
Oh,
like to ask coaches, "Oh, is there anything unique to the town?" And thank you for sharing that. And also shout out to your wife, who is a principal. Our mom is a principal,
oh,
so
cool.
we know that struggle. We know what that's like. So shout out to your wife on that.
Yeah,
Coach,
appreciate it.
is there anything about the program, about the college that we haven't covered that you want our audience to know?
Like I said, I think the biggest thing that is important to me, I mean, I have tremendous coach. We have 16 coaches, so but that's alumni and everybody coming in, and I think we all know that we're really fortunate to be able to carry those traditions and like you say, that program's way bigger than me, and it's way bigger. Like Coach Biley, when he was here, he built the legacies and the things here at Doane, and we bring alumni back in to talk about what their experience like. Why is this important? Why is Doane track and field different than somewhere else, and how has it helped you become who you are, as a person out in the real world, and trying to make it as a leader and things. And I think the culture and the things that we've been able to do and push to our kids. We're fortunate, and we get backed by the president and our athletic director, and like I said, when you've been here and the professors believe in you, and they know we've had a lot of arguments and we've been at it, but we know when we walk out, we're trying to help kids. That's the bottom line, and there's a lot of hard feelings that go into some of those conversations and over the years, but I think when we're done and you've been there a while, that they know what your intentions are, and it's only just trying to help kids be successful and find their way through a college in 4 years. And it's not always smooth, and they need direction, and sometimes you got to take track away from them, and you got to do some things. But by the time we're done, I think, like I said, the thing that makes Stone pretty special is that those relationships and the guys, when we won the national championship, we have senior speeches after every end of the conference year, and everybody else leaves but the conference. And not one single person said anything about winning the national championship. It was all about the friendships and the relationships and the journey and the things that they done. But not one kid said anything about winning the national championship. So I think that said a lot about what we're doing, a little bit. Like I said, we've been able to win a lot, but I think that happens because our GPAC sets a standard really high, and so does our national team. But we're all very competitive, and Coach Biley used to say, when he got second or he would win, he goes, "Well, what do you think? That's what I was paid to do. I was paid to win." So, you kind of take that, and that's what they expect, and that's what we try to do is put the best team out there that we can as individuals, and get a lot of good athletes at times that make us look good.
Let's go Tigers.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Coach, I do have one more before we get into the Final Four. Your son was with us in the beginning, helping us get situated with the camera, and you mentioned he's on the track team. What is it like to coach your son?
It's been good. So actually, that's my son that's a junior in high school.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, and anyway, he's a junior, so I'm putting some things out there. But he as a sophomore, he ran 2183 and 1070 and 48 something 400. So he's pretty talented young man. He's got districts tomorrow that we have. But my oldest son is a decathlete, and he was never going to go to Doane, but he ended up going to Doane. He was a very talented football player, but he had labrum surgery out of high school, so that put him out actually for 2 years because of the labrum surgery, and then we ended up having to have another surgery. So it's one of those things that, if he would have went Division I or two, he would have lost any scholarships or anything just because he wouldn't have been able. But we got him back his senior year. It was pretty emotional because he said, "Dad, all I want to do is score points in the conference meet." And he was still injured a little bit, and he ended up scoring fourth in the conference meet, and it was a pretty special moment for him. And he's at a really good level of a decathlete, and we were looking to probably get qualified pretty easily for the decathlon outdoors, and maybe make a run at top 8. But he hurt a quad 2 weeks ago, so he's out again. So those are really tough. I mean, I've watched everybody's kids, and I help everybody's kids, and I do not get nervous at a meet because I don't know if I know their ability levels and what they're doing. But guys, man, if my son's running 100 meters or he's doing something, my anxieties are bad. I mean, I want them to do so well and do really good things, but it's a good feeling, but it's different than trying to coach my kids. So, but it's fun to coach your kids, and I've really enjoyed my experience with my son Zach at Doane, and there's a possibility he may be back one more year to compete. And then yeah, I got two boys, and yeah, they're both pretty talented. Landon, they won a state championship last year, and he scored the opening kickoff, and it scored, and they won basketball state championship. So the team part, and then track, they last year I think they won the all class gold in 4x4. So my boys have had some success, and it's fun, and I've really enjoyed that journey. And I think, and you guys know, that's another thing that Donut I think makes us really special is every single one of my coaches know if you got a son that's doing something or you got an activity, you go. If it's not a track meet, you're not a Don't. You go take care of your children. And I learned from Coach Biley, he didn't go to anything, and his wife, and he said that's one of his biggest regrets was he didn't go watch his children do the things that they did in high school. My wife raised my kids, and that's one thing that our coaching staff and we've done a really good job of is. And I had a couple coaches in the NAIA said, how do you do it? And I'm like, you don't have to worry about it. I go take care of my family and my kids, and you don't, one workout's not going to make the difference, guys, in the long run. So that's another thing I think that's special about Doane is that family is, and you guys said that family is important, and that's our number one goal, but we still got to take care of our kids and, on meet days and things.
Amen.
Well, Coach, I know Rich told you this at the beginning, but we do this podcast to find diamonds in the rough, to find schools that we wish we knew about when we
Right.
were in the recruiting process. Rich, I think we found one of those schools.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, thanks. Yep. Been a good
Final,
ride.
Final Four, sir.
Let's do it.
All right, Coach, are you a coffee drinker?
Yes.
How do you brew your coffee and how do you take it?
Well, I have to use a courier now, but I like it brewed more than I do that if I have time, but that's how I get it.
Take it black?
Black.
Let's go.
Coach, do you have any daily practices or rituals that you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of Ed Phi?
Oh my gosh. My family's good. My wife's awesome. getting our kids around, getting them to school, and the things that we need to do. And I think her and I talk a lot together because she's got children and kids, and like you guys, you've heard your mom come home with work on her mind, and I come home with that, and it seems like that takes a lot of our time trying to help each other through the day and help kids and do things. But at the end of the day, just being there with family before you leave and knowing you get to go home to them again is what I look forward to. In between there, you take care of your other family and your other kids, and you get to go home and take care of your kids after that. But I'm pretty superstitious, so I do a lot of the same things. My Bazooka Joe bubblegum for meats, and I get a cartoon and a fortune on it with it, and not shaven during competition. And so there's some things, rituals that I do that I've done over the years, but yeah, that's kind of the only things that I kind of have.
All right. Where are you getting Bazooka Joe gum these days?
Dude, I go right through the grocery store aisle and it's sitting right there on the counter almost. Yeah, it's hard to find, but that's the only
Yeah.
place I find it. It's in Crete at a local, uh, I don't even, it's not a Casey's or anything. It's just a local little quick shop that has it sitting there.
Original flavor?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Absolutely. About 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. And well, I probably shouldn't tell you guys this, but we used to, Nebraska Westland used to be our big rivals. I mean, when we played football, we'd go burn a D in their football field, and they would come and burn a W in our field. And so there was, we cut their Westland side down and burn it in our bonfire. I mean, it was a big, 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 big rivalry over all these years. And Ted Bowling was there. I don't know if you know him or not, but Ted was there. We've been beating against each other for 30 years, 40 years. And anyway, they went Division 3 back in 2005 or something like that. And Ted and I decided that we would keep uh, the rivalry going and have a duel. And you don't see duels anymore. We're like, hey, we're going to go. And we really have some great performances because, the rivalry, but now after 15 years, I got to tell them about all the stuff that I had a kid on my team last year that I had to tell him that his dad was arrested because that's when they started having security on campus and he got caught. But we had a guy that was on our football staff that was a district attorney. So anyway, he got him out of jail before the parents showed up. So we didn't have anybody in jail when they showed up for the football game. But when we go to Westland, one of my rituals is to chew as much Bazooka Joe bubblegum as I can and leave a great big Bazooka Joe bubblegum D in the middle of their field. So
I like it, Coach. I
That's
like it.
amazing.
it's not natural grass, so I didn't know what else I could do. So I think that's the only way I could keep that tradition alive, and our kids get a kick out of that. And I might have overdid it last year. I think I left a pair of coyote ears in the middle of it as well, but we won the meet, so that was
That helps.
good.
Coach, what are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
Oh, I do like reading, but I haven't read in a while. I'm pure country, so I always tell everybody I like two kinds of music, country and Western. So it's pretty easy.
Do you have a favorite country Western artist?
I don't. I just like people who artists are normally. I just listen to music and enjoy it. So
Okay.
I like the old, like Waylon and Willie and Garth Brooks and some of those old guys. Dolly Parton.
Okay.
Yeah, they tell stories, so
Yep.
I like listening to those things.
Yeah, the last concert I went to, I was fortunate enough last September, I believe it was. I saw Willie Nelson in concert, so I
Oh
was
man,
I
that'd
could
been
check that
awesome.
off my box.
Yeah, good job.
Time.
You probably
Coach,
sang songs in with him, huh?
absolutely, you know it.
Absolutely.
Coach, last one we got is a lighthearted one. You mentioned some of those unique food offerings in Crete. So it could be maybe it's a food item, maybe it's a beverage. Do you have a guilty pleasure? Maybe it's Bazooka Joe.
Yeah, I'm pretty simple. If I'm celebrating, I drink a Budweiser. So
Let's
uh,
go.
And then if I'm really celebrating with some of the officials, because they like whiskey, so I figured that if I want to get some handicap and some calls going my way, I probably better drink what they're having. So I buy them whiskey and try to make sure that they understand I need help sometimes. So
Okay. Bud Heaven, a shot of whiskey. I think they call that a Boilermaker.
is it? Perfect.
Yep.
Coach, thank you so much for the time this evening.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed this conversation. I know our fans are going to enjoy this conversation.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys taking time to do that. So we don't do these things very often, but I really appreciate what you guys are doing to help. Like I said, with your backgrounds and coming from those little schools and being able to do the things you did as All-Americans and things, you know how important it is to it doesn't matter the size of where you were, but if you're winning and you're building relationships and teams, it doesn't matter if you're Division I, NAI, those memories will never go away.
That's right. It's all about the relationships and the community and the culture that you have, but also the stopwatch doesn't lie. So if you're good, you're good, and
Absolutely.
it doesn't matter if you're NAI, JUCO, Division I, you're going to be able to compete. So we're happy
Absolutely.
we got to have a conversation with you and shine the light on Doane, and we wish you the best of luck as you guys head into nationals, and we'll be rooting for the Tigers as well as Marion and Cumberlands and some of our other friends that we've made along the way in the NAI. We're excited. Jimmy and I were both locked to the computer during the indoor championships, so we'll be locked again for the outdoor championships, and we'll be rooting for you. We'll be looking for the Tigers.
Right. Those are great coaches. So I'm looking forward to seeing them.
Awesome. Well, we do appreciate you, Coach, and thank you for joining us, and have a good rest of your evening.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Coach Ed Fye from Doane University. Please give them a follow. Go check out the university. Go give them a look at the upcoming NAIA championships. We do appreciate you joining us this evening, and we'll be back on Wednesday evening. We've got a great one coming back from the Shore Conference back home in New Jersey.